can tell relationships dynamics within 3 dances.
Yes. The things that are required to build a successful dance and have harmony, synergy, closeness, trust, and true partnership, because tango is the ultimate partnership dance. It is truly about leading and following. It's the same thing that you have to do to have a successful relationship.
Hi, I'm Claude.
And I'm Jess.
We are corporate employees by day, entrepreneurs by night, and work besties for life.
Join us as we explore how work besties lift each other up, laugh through the chaos, and thrive together in every industry.
Work besties!
Most people communicate with words, but what happens when your body becomes the message? This week, we're joined with Linda Sutton, dancer, speaker, creator, and relationship coach, who teaches how tango can lead all of your relationships. So stick around to the end, where Linda will share with us a powerful truth every successful partnership needs on and off the dance floor.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Claude and Jess. It is a pleasure. I am so looking forward to engaging with you guys, especially with our offline conversation. This is about to be a fun ride.
Yes, totally. So first, like you saying, our offline conversation, I love tango, especially Argentine tango. It's such a sexy dance. How did you start to incorporating tango with relationship?
Excellent. Well, tango, like you, I just fell in love with it and then it took over my life. So prior to doing this work that I'm doing now, I was in corporate and I left my corporate work, which I still do some of, to teach dance full time, teach and perform dance full time. And actually my area expertise in the beginning of my dance career was the African roots of dance throughout the world. So I actually taught at a couple of universities, exploring the African roots of dance traditions and cultures all around the world, and started exploring the African roots of tango as a part of that body of work. What I found when I was doing the tango is it required everything of me. There was no faking the funk with tango. You have to be all in. You have to all be on the floor with your partner in order for it to work. And so that was the beginning of kind of this deep dive. Once I started working with couples and teaching them, 2 things emerged. Number one, I could see within 3 songs, which is a tanda, within that 3 songs, I knew everything that was going on in their relationships. And so I was able to use that information to coach them in their relationship so they could have more harmony in the dance, because whatever was going on in their relationship would show up on the floor. The other piece of it was realizing people found that might not want to do that coaching work or mentoring work verbally. They were more open to doing it through a fun activity that they didn't feel as intimidated by. So I started getting all of these referrals, and then that was the birth of Tutu Tango.
In tango, usually the man actually leads.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And the woman follows. So how do you see when there's a relationship when woman doesn't want to be led, they want to be part of the discussion?
That was me in the beginning. So I was like, no man gonna tell me what to do. I'm a leader already. What you doing here? So I know that concern and that issue all too well. And we address it in my work. And we really understand leadership and followership as positions in the relationship that have functions. But one of the primary things I lead with is that there is no leader without a follower. In the dance of tango, it requires agreement to be in partnership with one another. And in that partnership, there are roles that we take on that fulfill certain functions that allow us to thrive. And so a woman can still be a leader, and she just moves in the dance in a different function and role that unlocks a different part of herself. So we still value and honor those 2 positions, but it does not go without saying that if there is no agreement with the follower to be in that role and position, then there is no leader, and there's a respect for both roles and both functions in the dance. You just start in that role because of the positions. So the leader is the person who's initiating, and they are the person that's facing, if you will, the flow of traffic. So it's really a position thing. But in our framework, the leader's goal and role is to lead and then follow their lead. So they're taking on both functions, even though their position is the leadership position, they have to lead and then they have to follow behind their leader. They lead and then the energy is passed to the follower to execute and then provide feedback. So there's kind of this circular energetic flow in the dynamics of the dance. Exactly. It's a dynamic flow of energy that passes from one person to the next and back to the other person throughout the dance. So once again, leading follower are positions in the dance, and the function is a dynamic flow of leadership and followership in the dance.
With Argentine Tango, the male role is supposedly the leader, but in many parts of the dance, it's actually the woman leading.
Yeah.
So to your point, there's that give and take, and it's, a lot of it's built off that trust of each other. Linda, I admitted this to you before we started recording that I actually have taken Argentinian Tango class, and I was not very good because I was laughing the whole time. What would you give advice for people that couldn't get in the zone?
The beautiful thing is that there's not just one way to do tango. Tango, even though there are the principles, the rules that govern the roles, and then the rules that govern the road, which is how you navigate, it is really about the couple. It's not just one style that's always serious and staunch and what you see on stage and in movies. There is a playful side. There is one that flows. There's one that's very romantic. There's a side of it that's very sensual. There's a side of it that's very rhythmic. And all of these different styles are within tango. So it's totally appropriate that when you came into the dance, you were using laughter to relax into it, to connect in with your partner, to perhaps release your nervousness and to create bond. And that is totally appropriate. It's not just one style that where you have to be serious and stern.
That might be a misperception because that's what I was thinking. I'm not taking it serious enough because every time I've seen it professionally danced, it is more of either the very sensual or very stern.
And it's good that you mentioned that because that brings up a very important point for people who are new to the dance. There is social tango and there is stage tango. And they are very different styles. Stage tango is for performance. The movements are very big so everyone can see it. It's to entertain you, to wow you. However, social tango is really about two people connecting, getting to know one another, bond and build trust. The movements are usually very small. It's not really about showing off for the crowd and big movements. It's about creating trust and safety between the two of you. As you deepen that trust and safety, other people will be in awe of it because when they see you dance on the floor, but that's not your intention. Your intention is not to show off for the crowd. It's to connect with your partner in a way that's awe-inspiring.
When you coach couples, it's more the social tango that you're doing, right?
Absolutely. Well, so the social thing has to occur before even the stage tango because stage tango is very complex and it requires a lot of trust not to get hurt. But absolutely with couples, we start with social tango and those principles.
And you mentioned in your kickoff, you can tell relationships dynamics within 3 dances.
Yes.
How does that happen?
The things that are required to build a successful dance and have harmony, synergy, closeness, trust, and true partnership, because tango is the ultimate partnership dance. It is truly about partnership, leading and following. They begin to dissolve, and it all is about you working in concert with your partner to create the dance. Because you go through the same exact steps of connection, trust, concern, fear, getting in step on the dance, it's the same thing that you have to do to have a successful relationship. And if you're having a power struggle with your partner off the dance floor, it is absolutely going to show up on the dance floor. If you have trust issues, if there is not an equal level of respect or value, or you get along really, really well and you finish each other's sentences.
Oh, it's like, don't you tell me what to do.
And then you'll see it on the dance floor in the form of resistance and pushing back and the desire to be on one's own axis. So there's all this body language that tells more about your relationship than your words could ever say. Most people are not aware that 93% of communication is actually nonverbal. Only 7% of it is the words. It's tonality, it's body language, it's energy is the 93%. And so that's how we know, like I said, I know all y'all business. And they're surprised. They're like, I'm like, okay, I give them a profile. And I'm like, okay, so this is what you guys are going through at home. And they're like, how do you know that? I don't know how I feel about that.
So you see that there's a misbalance between the couple. How do you change that dynamic?
Absolutely. I take them through a series of movement exercises through a class or a camp or a private lesson. And literally we work through building their dance. And then they have these aha moments in their relationship because they can feel it in their body. So they realize that trust is not some sort of abstract idea. It is actually trust or lack of trust actually shows up in how their partner's body responds to them. Safety shows up in their body. Even misunderstanding. If, for example, if a follower does not understand the leader's lead, he can actually feel that confusion in her body. And so then it becomes, oh my goodness, okay, I can hear when I'm not clear. I can hear when she doesn't quite understand. Even though her eyes are closed, even though I can't see her face, I can feel that tension or that concern or hesitation in her body. That's how we walk through it in the sessions or class.
I heard you mention energy alignment. It sounds similar to what you're talking about. What does that look like in a healthy relationship? And then what does that look like where you can tell there's some strife or opportunities in that relationship?
One of the things that I like to do, because I know as a lady myself, and as I work with ladies who are leaders, always reconciling that followership position in the relationship is a partnership, and it's just a function of positions in the dance. What we find in this work and what, I do in terms of a healthy dynamic is, number one, understanding it's a partnership. That's what the work is. And number two, they're both equal and interdependent. So that's why I always lead with, there is no leader without a follower. So your role as a leader is completely dependent upon a vision that's shared and therefore agreement. If I don't agree to follow you and work together collaboratively with you, then you are not a leader. And then at any point in time where I'm not in agreement, and you see that not only in relationships that are romantic, but also friendships and in work, if we are no longer in alignment with the vision that the leader is holding and the agreements that we have in place, then you lose followers. We each have roles and we're contributing to this whole in a partnership to create something beautiful.
I love this analogy. A follower and leader is not a hierarchy, because usually, yes, that's what people assume right away. And I love that you're saying, no, it's not. It's actually side by side.
It actually starts with the follower, and you see that in the dance. And that's what I love about it, because I started out this and it took me about 1.5 years because I'm strong. If you guys can't already tell, I am a strong sister. Just that resistance to being controlled and told what to do was more mental. But then I realized that the dance actually starts with the follower. The leader is inspired by the follower in the dance to go through all of that to learn what is needed in order to lead. Most leaders don't wake up one day and it's like, oh yes, I want to dance tango. Many of them, they see followers or some people that they want to collaborate with. And then they say, I'm going to gather the skills that are necessary in order to collaborate with this person. And you don't become a leader typically until you have been a follower.
You had shared with us the 2 to Tango structure framework. Help us understand how you created it and how it helps to navigate with conflict or misalignment.
Oh, great. So when we talk about alignment, the image I give people as a starting point is yin and yang. And so yin and yang represents the masculine and feminine forces, male, woman, just kind of how things occur in the cosmos. And this apparently is important to you guys, because I see you all laughing like.
Yes.
Well, we have many clips about how in a majority of our episodes, one of us says yin and yang.
Yeah. Because I do believe it.
I always comment it was her, and then when I was doing the editing back to make a funny clip about it wound up being more me saying it.
So, because that's the energy between the two of you, that's probably what you're seeing. Exactly, because when you two are a perfect example of balance and synergy and working together and harmony and playfulness and a shared vision. and partnership. And so it makes sense that yin and yang would be a natural way that you would describe or perceive your interaction.
Right.
Equally in the dance, when you talk about healthy energetic alignment, this is what I like to say with couples, because there is a masculine and feminine, at least in the couples that I work with, there's man and woman. So there's a natural masculine and feminine dynamic. But what I also like to tell people is that most people focus on the masculine and the feminine, but they forget the little circles that are in that particular image that is of the other. So within yang, there is yin, and within yin, there is yang. And so when we were talking about that kind of flow of energy and dynamic that you see in the dance, where the lead leads and then follows his lead, and then once he passes the energy, the follower executes. So there's an initiation, which is activity. There's execution, which is activity. And so you see that kind of flow. That is the baseline that helps me to walk people through the framework. And then there's a way that you build your dance. You invite your partner, you approach your partner, you get into the embrace, you set the boundaries, and you express what your level of trust is. You make tests. And so you go through those stages in every single dance in order to have a successful dance. Well, if you go through those same exact steps in your interaction with your partner, you will get repeatable results. It's mind blowing when you see it in action.
And you mentioned a lot of this has to do with body language versus verbal. Knowing that a lot of the listeners are focused on continuing to develop the relationship with work besties, are there elements of this framework that they could incorporate into understanding their bestie by just reading body language?
Yes. One of them is the principle of the embrace. Number two, the principle of the invitation, even though the invitation comes first, but I wanted to start with the embrace. And then the last one is leading and following your lead, which is a way of listening. So I'm going to start with the embrace because in some of your previous work, I've heard people talk about, people have different perceptions of their work relationship. Some of them think it's just professional. And so the boundary is that we're just professionals and never the twain shall meet in terms of other areas of my life. For some, we're besties, but it's only in a professional setting. So we don't really introduce our personal lives or other parts of ourselves to it. And then the other is we full on besties on at work, at happy hour. You come into the barbecue at my house, my children's birthday parties. When my mama come and make apple pie, you come over and get a slice. So you have those kind of ways of perceiving. And I think one of the first places that people need to get clear about is determining the nature of the relationship and establishing what we call the embrace. And we have different embraces. We have an open embrace, a salon embrace, and a apolado embrace that represents levels of boundary. Like open embrace says, like professional, I'm going to be on my own. You're going to be on your own. We're going to interact as professionals. And that's the boundary. And that's okay. But you establish that up front and then you move through your connection, which is the embrace, that way. In reverse, you have chest to chest contact, which is apilado, which means you're all in every area of your life. You're not on your own access, and you bring together your professional lives, your personal lives, even sometimes your spiritual life together to really connect with each other, both in the workplace and out of the workplace. Once you've established that connection, and then you interact with each other from there, and then everything in between. So once you meet someone that you gel with, just be clear in your mind and communicate clearly to them where you feel comfortable in terms of the level of closeness. And then once you've established that, then move in that. And I say that because, some people like the two of you, it's like all in, like BFF, ride. And if she called me after work, I'm pulling off my earrings and I'm driving up and I'm saying, where you at? I'm pulling up, so to speak. Yeah. But then some people may not feel comfortable with that. But they really want to have a really, really close relationship within the professional boundaries. And that's okay. And that they can really share and connect. But then when they go home, like you say, in working with teams that are remote, they may never, ever get to see each other physically because I'm in one country and my teammates in another country. So we may never get to engage that close, but we still may have a closeness that we can bring to our work. And so that's the first concept. The second concept is the invitation, which is once again using verbal language. And usually that's how work besties meet each other. Like there's a chemistry, there's a pull, you feel like we gonna get along. I can see already from across the room, and then you're in that meeting and someone says something and you say something and you look at each other like, yeah, I see you at the water cooler. I can see it. So you have that eye contact. You see someone in their body language, perhaps in several meetings or in interactions, the way that their body language invites you in and lets you know, hey, I feel safe and comfortable with you. You can get closer, or even just the way they lean in when they talk to you. There's these nonverbal cues that you can use to get closer. We definitely use it in Tango, and we would use it here. And then I would say the last thing, which is how the energy moves in between, is that trust builds over time with Tango. Even though we may start out in the open embrace, as time moves on, I may feel more and more comfortable as I build trust to get closer and closer to you. In Tango, we do that, and I can see that happening in the work environment as well. It would be appropriate. You may start out as I'm feeling a little bit more guarded, perhaps because of the past, or I'm not sure. But then as we engage over time, we can build that level of closeness and deepen that trust.
I was thinking, what's actually the opposite when you have one person that definitely wants to be your work bestie, like from the beginning, and
someone trying to steal you from me? What's happening here?
And then the other person is like there. Is it more that verbal cue or the physical cue?
Absolutely. And we see that in Tango. So for example, there might be a leader or a follower who is like, yes, I would like to get closer to you. And then there's another partner which is not quite there. It could be an overall thing, or it could be a just in the moment thing. Like today, I'm not having a good day, and we might normally dance a certain way, but today I'm kind of in a different space. Usually the follower sets the distance only because they're in the most vulnerable position, meaning they're the ones who's walking backwards. So usually they set that, but the leader also is listening and watching. Okay, partner is standing 12 inches away from me or 18 inches away from me. That's a clear cue that they want open embrace, that they need some space, that they need some distance. And so I'm going to engage with them in that way and not going to try to pull them in when they're there. I'm going to engage with them from this place. And so leaders do that. They listen to the distance and the body language of their follower or their partner, and then they make adjustments. And it's okay. And the whole thing is to create a safe space for them to feel comfortable with the distance that they've established. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing in terms of leadership. And this is where leading is not really a hierarchy. It's a role. The leader is saying, my partner have greater distance. So my role is just to create a safe space for them to establish their boundaries and respect it and honor them and interact with them in the space that they've created and that I'm going to create for us.
This relates so beautifully to work besties, because that's pretty much the ethos of the relationship, is to create that safe space for each other.
Exactly.
Obviously, being in yang bounces back and forth. I'm just thinking over the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of times where you've come up to me in the office and been like, how are you doing? What's going on? Ready to like talk about something. And I just give you the look and you're like, okay. And you back that away. Because I give you the look like, rah, like,
and then that's the thing is that
but I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
I just gave you the look and you knew. Oh, look at her.
And
She's
there's
stressed.
the trust. I didn't take it personally.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
there you go.
Her time. She'll come, and I know she'll come back later, say, okay, I can talk now. I can be vice versa.
Right.
So,
yeah,
that's totally.
It's a great example of that real time that's been happening a lot.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is that you didn't take offense to it. You didn't feel it as a rejection. And that's the beautiful dynamic, your own personal tango. She doesn't want to do close embrace today or in this moment.
Fine.
I respect that. I create the space for it. And the wonderful thing is when you honor and you create the space for your partner to be in that fluidity in terms of level of trust, level of closeness based on where they are, then it creates the space for them to move through it. So let's say today I'm needing some space when you're like, okay, I'm going to hold the space for you even if you're 20 feet away. And then once you have processed and you've allowed yourself to calm down, then you go looking for your bestie. You be like, hey girl, where you at? Wait a second, I ain't seen you all day.
But it's also because we know each other. We know what is happening in each other's lives.
Yeah.
So that's why also you don't take it and personally.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is why you know that you're not taking it personally, because you know fundamentally what they are going through. And I like that point also one day when I had a question. I'm like, how are you? And told me something. And then, and I misread it and I gave solutions. And you answered, I don't need solution. I need to vent.
And the beautiful thing about body language and energetic alignment is it works extremely well when you know each other, but it still works even if you don't. And if you move with an awareness of your partner or the person that you're engaging with, and you're looking at that and knowing that most of the communication is going to come from this before they open their mouths, then the minute they started to speak, they would just be watching your cues. And they would say, oh, okay, her face is disengaged. Okay, her body pulled back. Okay, she went from smiling to not smiling. You know, she went from leaning forward as she was to leaning
like
back.
To Claude, and I'm like, oh, she's not listening.
No.
Yes.
No, I was thinking of something else. It's also incredible. I think you need an emotional maturity to understand those cues. Because, for example, I know people that I give this physical, like, get away from me, but they don't understand. So they keep on going.
They do. They see it. They're playing Tango with you. They see it as a challenge. It's like you threw down the rose. Here I go. And they're jumping after
and I'm like, nope.
Yes,
I'm not talking about each other.
This is when you know people really well. I immediately know what she's talking about.
In movies, Tango is like about the chase and the conquering and all that. It is actually not that in practice. Really is about the invitation and the acceptance of the invitation. And there is a persistence, but not from a conquering standpoint. At least from a social environment, if there is resistance, the leader usually, because there's principles that govern Tango. The follower is usually observing the leaders in a variety of environments before they accept the dance. When the follower does not accept their dance or their invitation, then they understand that there's an energy misalignment. So the leader doesn't take that as I've got to conquer, as much as there's not invitation, there's not enough information, or there is a vibe misalignment. It doesn't mean that they'll never try again, because usually in social settings, if people are not already coupled up, you might be having an off day. I might check in later. But if she sends a very clear no, then they're like, okay, there's a vibe check. We're just not on the same page. Just like in work, just like in relationship, it's just not a fit, and you can still be in the same space and not be partners.
Sometimes is the follower is not ready yet, right? Because you don't come. So the leader might try a bit later in a different way to really be able to look differently at the other person and work with them to make them secure and trusty.
Absolutely. That's the same way in terms of work. As you're getting to know your coworkers, you're a new person on the team. You're still trying to figure out who you vibe with, who you can trust, because you can't trust everybody at work. Everybody not trustworthy. As you go through that, you may have the welcoming team like, hi, welcome. But that new person is like, I'm not sure yet. And so you don't stop making a space for them to feel welcome just because in that first couple of days, they're still trying to feel it out. You create the space for them, and then you allow them to observe and make their decisions, and you honor that.
Have you ever had a bad partner on the dance floor, and how did you overcome that?
Ooh, chair. Yes.
Not what I thought you were going to respond with.
You don't get to dance this long and not have bad partners. It's less so nowadays because I take the time to observe my partners before I accept their invitations. At this point, I can see some of the things that may not align with me. I definitely listen to my gut and listen to the energy, because it is an energy. If something in my energy says, maybe not, then I trust that the body exchange that's going on. But early in my career, I felt like you couldn't say no.
Okay.
You want to be nice and you want to accept everybody. And the gentleman was basically trying to get me to do something, and it wasn't working. What I was receiving from them was not what they were leading. And so that's usually where it occurs. It's not usually that they're a bad leader. It's that they're not realizing that the signal that they're sending is not what's coming across, and they are not yet aware that it's your leadership, not necessarily she's not doing it right. She's just there to follow, and that there's some feedback. The way that I learned to handle it was that I say, I'm just here to follow.
And that works?
It does.
Helps them recognize that they're misaligned in what they're leading.
That communicates the cause and effect, because leading and following is a cause and effect. So I'm the leader. So whatever I do is what's impacting you. If what's coming out is not what I want to see, then it's for me as a leader to make the adjustment. It doesn't matter whether or not they're getting it right. They know what to do or don't know what to do. It's for them to understand, at least in the dance, that because we're in a space where there's safety issues, if something is not going as you need it to go, then I put the onus back. And because the leadership role is to initiate and then mine is to execute. So I just give them a gentle reminder that I'm just here to follow. And then they're like, that's right. It's a very subtle way, but because they understand when I say I'm just here to follow, they're like, so she's putting it back on me. I'm the one who's leading this, and what I'm seeing is a function of what I'm doing. And so that's how I resolve it now. And I also teach my followers to do that gracefully. We're so used to verbal communication. We don't think that that's sufficient. But what I use is my body language to just be in a non-combative position. I just stand and I wait. And then they're like trying to get it to do. And I'm not understanding. I just wait. And then if they do something and it's not working out, I stay. And that's actually, I become a great follower. I would stand and I wouldn't move. Whatever they led, I would go to that position and then I would stay there. I wouldn't try to correct it. I wouldn't try to make it right. I wouldn't try to tell them it was right or wrong. I would just give them the space to see it. And then they realize, oh, she is a reflection of my lead. And then they would make the adjustment. It doesn't take much more.
That is so interesting. It goes back to the hierarchy between, follower and leader. You actually, a follower has so much power as well, right?
I think that's why it's not a hierarchy.
Exactly.
You're equal the whole time.
Exactly.
How are you helping each other?
And that is so interesting to say, like at the beginning, I was saying to the question, oh, usually it's the man that is leading, but there's a power in both situation, and the follower can actually impact the leader and make him change. And that is what is so fascinating.
That is actually why I dance tango professionally. Once I had that breakthrough, because I used to perceive the follower as a position of weakness.
Yeah.
Because of that. That was where my resistance was, as opposed to it is truly a position of power. And even more importantly, it reflects the interdependence of what it means to be in partnership with a man or another person. So when you talk about impact, the second thing is, once you're okay with being a translation and an amplification of their energy, it actually unlocks something within you as a follower. Let me just back up with one thing. The leader initiates, the follower executes. So the leader sends the energy, and the follower is the physical expression of the energy that the gentleman has sent out. Everything that she is just taking energy and showing it to the world. She actually amplifies it. So the gentleman understands, for every centimeter of lead, you're going to see 6 inches of movement in the woman. That, number one, is just extraordinary to realize. It's like, wait a second. You literally are an exponential expression of all the power that you receive. So anything that anyone gives you, you have the ability in life and work to expand it and express it in a very large, powerful, creative way. And then the second thing is once I realized, then it allowed me, because I am such a strong leader in other areas, to really tap into how powerful I could be as a follower and to be that pure expression and be that pure feedback. So one of the reasons why I've done so well and excel professionally is because I have a reputation for being a pure follower. So all the men that dance with me know what they are giving. I am going to be an exact quote unquote reflection of that. So then they really know that the onus is on them. They really can't blame their followers on what's going on. They have to take full responsibility and ownership for everything they initiate. And I just am giving them feedback, pure, without any, you got it wrong, you got it right. And it's a really powerful thing when I'm working with leaders for them to realize that, because then they have a completely different interaction with their followers, with their employees, with their children, with their wives, because when they understand everything they initiate is showing up in the world back to me in an amplified fashion. And if I want to see something different in the world, then I have got to change what I am doing, how I am leading, how I'm approaching another person, because they're just going to give back to me what I give. And it's going to be bigger.
It's incredible how, and until we had this podcast and we started to talk, I never thought of the relationship in dancing can be applied to leadership also at work. It's great to have this analogy, and it's so much easier than to apply as a leader in at work to apply that dance thoughts.
Absolutely. We're talking about work. And so leadership typically is in the workplace hierarchical from an organization standpoint. However, even though the organizational chart may be hierarchical, the way that the work gets done is in teams. The more successful or the most successful organization, the leader yields to their team. They are having the vision, they're leading the vision, but like in the dance, they're constantly getting feedback from their followers, their team members on how things are going, how things should go. You know, they usually give verbal feedback, or they give nonverbal feedback in terms of their satisfaction. Because you can tell when a team is really on board with their leader and when a team is not on board. Their body language, how they perform, is a direct reflection of their relationship to their leader or their team members. I come in, I just give the bare minimum. I don't really engage and participate in the meetings. That's a sign to leadership that you want to engage that person, and it's feedback for you to make adjustments.
And as a follower or leader was giving you something and you say that you expanded 6 times. The same thing, if you're a good leader, you want your team to shine, to receive whatever you can give, and then they can go make it this beautiful project.
And that's what you see in the dance. When you see a couple dance, who are you watching?
The woman, actually.
Exactly. Most people are looking at the woman because the woman is the follower. She's executing all the moves. The gentleman is leading the moves, but he's not executing the steps. You're watching the follower because the follower is the most expressive part of the dance. Gentleman does moves, but he can't lead and be doing more than she's doing because he has to provide the stability and the support. So you're exactly right. The best leaders yield to their followers and make them look fabulous. And more importantly, they spend as much time listening to their followers as they do leading. The best leaders in tango are extraordinary listeners. They're listening to everything that's going on with their follower in her body and making adjustments every single step. We get so caught up in the bigness of the dance. The reason that our framework works is because this feedback conversation is happening with every single step. You can't get to the next step until you execute this one fully. And that's why within 3 to 5 steps, if it's not working, the dance falls apart. It doesn't take 10 minutes of dancing for the dance to fall apart. It falls apart within 3 to 5 steps.
Linda, if our listeners want more of this connection or harmony or feel like they're missing this passion in their lives, where should they start?
I just recently released a book called It Takes Two to Tango, using the secrets of the dance to create a passionate partnership. There's 22 intricate steps that you use to build a dance, and I draw the parallels on how you can build that in the relationship. I also have some materials on my website, lindadsutton.com /ebook. For people that are just afraid of dancing itself, they can start there to get over their fear and trepidation of dancing before they start the next phase of dancing with another.
Thank you so much, Linda. Really, it was a very enlightening episode. We truly love it, and we can see and apply that dance metaphor to our everyday relationships. Bestie, if you love this episode as much as we did, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and also send it to your work bestie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Ciao.
Remember, whether you're swapping snacks in the break room, rescuing each other from endless meetings, or just sending that perfectly timed meme, having a work bestie is like having your own personal hype squad.
So keep lifting each other up, laughing through the chaos, and of course, thriving. Until next time, stay positive, stay productive, and don't forget to keep supporting each other.